for mensuration, we need to look at surface area and volume of different solids. In grade 9, you would have studied cube and cuboid. In grade 10, we have cylinder, cone, and sphere. So for these shapes, you should know the basic formula for curved surface area, total surface area, and volume. And the kind of questions that are usually asked for mensuration is not about just a single shape, like for a cylinder, find the volume, because there's just a very direct formula. That is not for grade 10 level. Instead, they might ask you something about a combined solid, or melting and recasting one solid into other solids. That is more commonly asked. So any which way, you have to remember the formula for the individual shapes and then look at the situation given in the question and find out which surfaces are to be included or which are supposed to be subtracted. That will give you the surface area of the resulting solid. And for volume, suppose if you're melting and recasting, the overall volume remains the same. So apply some basic concepts like that. And questions might also include something to do with your cost, or if there is a hollow shape, hollow cylinder, hollow sphere, hollow hemisphere, you might have inner radius, outer radius. So there is a inner surface area, outer surface area, all of that. So that can be asked. So there are some questions you can go through. Okay, so problems of frustum are not included. That is something to do with part of a cone. It's not an ICSE syllabus. And also just go through some of the recent questions of mensuration in the recent papers. So there are questions of taking a paper, rolling it and forming a cylinder or a cone. So you should know all that also. Or suppose if you're rotating a triangle around one of the sides, then what shape is formed. So all of that you should be able to visualize. So for example, if I have a right angle triangle, I have two sides and one hypotenuse. If I am rotating this triangle around a side which is not the hypotenuse, I will be able to generate a cone, a 3D cone like this. And in case I was trying to rotate the triangle, the right angle triangle, about the hypotenuse, then what kind of shape is formed? So that you have seen in some recent specimen paper, you can check that. So anything with rotation, or in one of the papers, I think last year's paper 2024, there was a question of a cylinder and you're cutting that cylinder into two parts. So find the total surface area of the two halves together. So you have to understand, when you're cutting the cylinder halfway through like that, it will expose a rectangular surface area. So you have to calculate the area of the rectangles also. Things like that. Or some other kind of question where there is a liquid inside a container and then you're dropping some solids into that. What is the rise in the level of the liquid? That is also common. Or if you're cutting, cutting I've already talked about. So different possibilities exist for mensuration for the given shape. They can make you think, make you visualize about different situations possible, but in any situation, understand what is happening and always apply relevant formula for that situation. What to add, what to subtract, that you should be able to figure out. Then and also always write the correct unit, otherwise you will be losing marks unnecessarily. Okay, then for trigonometry, there are two topics. One is about proving trigonometric identities and heights and distances. Now, trigonometry basics were learned in grade 9, so you have to remember the basics definitely. In one textbook, I think there is an exercise of complementary angles. So you should anyway know the complementary angle relation, but question specific to that is not a part of your syllabus. What is part of your syllabus is proving identities. proving simple trigonometric identities based on some of these identities. So you can apply these identities to prove many more other identities. And whenever you're proving whatever identity, if you're applying one of these identities, it's good to write the identity on the side. And always remember to, again, for any proof I've talked about in proportion also, here also, if there is any proof to be done, there are two sides, left and right side. So evaluate them separately, simplify them separately. Don't keep writing from the beginning whatever is given in the question paper, because what is given in the question paper, it's to prove it. It's not given that that is true in the beginning. So evaluate or simplify them separately, or you start with one side, simplify it, and you'll get the other side. Either right to left or left to right, both are fine. Or separately evaluate, and then if it simplifies to a common expression, then also we can say that hence it's proved. Then for heights and distances, some common terms you are supposed to know. If there is a person observing something, so there's an imaginary line called line of sight connecting the observer to the object that they're observing, line of sight. And then there is always the horizontal level. So if suppose you can imagine ground, the flat ground, and any vertical thing, a building, a tree or something. So from whichever point you're observing, let's say you're observing from this point over here, you can always draw a horizontal line which is parallel to your ground. Then suppose you're observing something above you. So from your point to wherever you're observing is the line of sight. So there is an angle formed between line of sight and the horizontal. That is an angle of elevation. If you're observing something which is above you, it is angle of elevation. But if you're looking at something which is below you, then you get angle of depression. So read the question carefully. There will be a word problem. Read the question. The diagram may or may not be given in the question. In any case, you have to draw the diagram in your answer sheet. If it is given, just copy the same thing and just label ABCD whatever is given according to the question. If it's not given, you have to make your own diagram, label it properly, ABCDEF, whatever, and then look at the right angle triangles, which side is given, which side is unknown. So according to the given and the unknown, you will be able to identify which trigonometric ratio you have to use. And generally heights and distances are about perpendicular and bases. So tan ratio connects perpendicular and base. So most of the time tan ratio will be used unless you're interested in the hypotenuse, which might be like the ladder placed on a wall or the length of a string, which is connecting a kite or something like that. Then sine or cos might be required, but in any other case tan ratio is required. And suppose the angles given in the question may be standard angle 30, 60, 45, or it may be non-standard also. It might be 20 degree, 53 degree. In non-standard situation, you have to refer to the table. So you have to ask for the mathematical table and check the correct value in the table. So then the next important unit is statistics. Important because again there are a lot of things here and a lot of different questions can be asked which are of high weightage. Now statistics you have been learning since a long time, and you know that data can be either raw data, ungrouped data, grouped data. So grade 10 syllabus includes all types of data, although weightage will be more for grouped data questions. Raw data and all that you have learned in previous grades, and even in grade 9 you have learned mean median for raw data and grouped data. So for grade 10 more weightage is given for grouped data. Now suppose mean, there are three methods: direct, shortcut and step deviation. You have to learn all the three methods because the question might specify which method to use, and in case they have specified, you have to use that method only. If it is not specified, you can use any one of the three methods. So these methods are for group data, or even if there is a frequency distribution table given for ungrouped data, then also these three methods can be applied the same way. Then the next question can be on finding the median of group data. So for finding the median of group data, you have to draw this graph called less than ogive. Ogive is also known as cumulative frequency curve. It's a S curve. So again, practice, I'm sure you have practiced a lot of questions on that. So usually one question is given for 5 marks or 6 marks. So I feel if you have practiced that enough, you will be able to confidently attempt that and score marks on that. So you just need to know how to locate, how to estimate the median or the lower quartile, upper quartile, interquartile range, all of that. And they might also ask you some things like, suppose class intervals are given 10 to 20, 20 to 30. They might ask you how many number of people have less than 24. So that you have to draw a line in the graph and then take a reading from the graph. So that is important. And then for mode, you have to draw the histogram. So again, for group data, you have to draw the histogram in the graph sheet and then estimate the mode. For raw data, mode will be just whichever observation has the highest frequency, that is the mode. Mean and median for raw data you have studied in grade 9, and very less likely it will be asked, but it is still in the syllabus. And then the last topic is based on probability, which is generally a simple topic, but just answer it very carefully. Um, you have to be familiar with different terms, and probability that you have in syllabus is technically a theoretical or classical probability, which always you can find using the formula probability of some event. Event can be something like tossing a coin, throwing a dice, or picking some sort of a card or some marble, whatever. That is an event. So the probability of some event happening is always equal to number of favorable outcomes for that event divided by total number of possible outcomes. Now, in any question, you have to write this formula at least once in your solution. If there are many subparts, you don't have to write the formula again and again. Just once you write this formula and just list down in case of questions involving numbers or alphabet ABCD, something like that, for that specific event, which are the favorable outcomes. For example, if you're throwing a dice and the question is about getting an even number in the dice, so you have to write the favorable outcomes of getting even number are 2, 4, 6, right, in the set format 2, 4, 6. And you know that there are three numbers, three even numbers, so the probability is 3 by 6, and always reduce it to simplest form. 3 by 6 reduces to what? 1 by 2. So you don't need to write it as any percentage or decimal, but express the final answer in the simplest form of the fraction. So that's going to be important. And in ICSE syllabus, you will not have questions on a deck of 52 playing cards. That involves your king, queen, jack, 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, and then different colors, red and black. And then there are some suits or suite, something like that, which is spades, clubs, diamonds, hearts. So those kind of questions are mostly asked in CBSE. ICSE does not involve cards. And also, because I have mentioned here simple problems on single event will involve throwing one dice, tossing one coin, or picking one object from a collection of things. That is a single event. If you have something to do with throwing a dice two times, or throwing two dice at the same time, or tossing a coin 2-3 times, again those questions are not for ICSE 10th level, but for later on. Yeah, so that is for probability. Okay, so then overall, this is the syllabus, and these are the topics that are important. Rather, I mean, you can have questions from any topic as such, but you can just go through the previous year's papers to understand which types of questions have been asked almost every year. For example, every year you have a question of drawing the ogive and finding median or something like that. Or every year you had a question of solving an inequation, writing the solution set, drawing the number line. So I hope that you have practiced the common questions. And in case you see any question that has not been asked before, just carefully read the question and try to answer according to whatever information is given and whatever concept is involved. Some questions might also involve concepts from multiple units. Now, units are like, they have mentioned statistics, mensuration, probability, algebra. So it might happen that a question requires, let's say, a concept of geometry as well as, let's say, trigonometry. Now, again, geometry and trigonometry are sort of related, but whenever you're looking at a question, try to think of different concepts that might be required to solve a question. Like, I remember there was a question during my exam which seemed like a circles question, but it needed application of trigonometry also. So do think of trying to connect different chapters, different concepts together when you're solving a question. And when you're writing your exam, when you go to write your exam, uh, make sure you have all the things that you need. And then once the reading time starts, a good practice is to look at section B, and out of 7 main questions, try to look at the subparts of each main question and try to decide the best 4 questions that you will be able to answer very well. And try to keep a backup also, like a fifth question as a backup in case in one of the 4 questions something is not going well when you actually start writing, then you can switch on to another question. And suppose if you have answered some question and you're like, okay, this main question is something I think I'm not very confident with, do not cross out whatever you have already answered. Like, unless you're trying to answer the same question again in a different method or you're getting a different answer, then you have to cross out a previous attempt. But in case like you're trying to answer an extra question, you have already answered some part of a main question, you have spent time and effort in writing that, so just leave it like that, because the examiner will actually evaluate everything that you have written, and for section B they will calculate and select the best 4 uh, main questions out of the 7. So try not to answer extra questions unless you face a situation where you feel like something is not correct or it's not going right. Then try to answer maybe one extra question. Otherwise, try to have a good speed of writing. Answer only 80 marks, because even if the exam is for 3 hours, the time usually runs a little short, and you might not even notice how fast the time is going. So generally, whatever marks you have, if you have, let's say, a 1 mark MCQ, spend maximum of 2 minutes. If you're stuck in any question for any reason, you can always come back to it later. Make sure that you're not overspending on any one question, because that will be very, very harmful overall, because there might be so many other questions which you can solve very easily. You should not run out of time for those questions. So 1 mark, maximum 2 minutes, like just double the marks in terms of minutes. 3 marks, maximum 6 minutes, and 4 marks, maximum 8 minutes. There might be few 5 mark questions also according to the format given, so that you take maximum 10 minutes. If you see that, let's say, a 3 mark question, you have already spent 5 minutes and still it's like you have not even solved it halfway, try to leave some space, and then later, once you have solved the other questions, come back and solve it. try to answer the subparts of one main question together. For example, if you have started question 7 and there are parts 7a, b and c, try to finish them one after the other. Otherwise, what happens if you answer 7a in first page, 7b in fourth page and 7c in last page? It will be very difficult for the person who is entering the total marks, and if there is a mistake then it will be your loss. So all subparts of a main question you have to write together, write the correct question number, and you can start with section B, section A, doesn't matter. Try to complete one entire section together. Rough work you have to show in the same page. For MCQs, I generally suggest something like, suppose if you have your answer sheet, one sheet on the left, one sheet on the right, you can do, let's say, rough work on the left sheet, entirely rough work, rough work, rough work. Then on the right, there are 15 answers to be written. So you just take 15 lines and write the final answer clearly. And if you have space left, there also you can do some rough work. So make sure that the MCQ final answers are very clearly visible to the person who is evaluating with the correct option number. And suppose if there is option, let's say option 1, 3 centimeter, option 2, 4 centimeter. And if you feel option 2 is correct, please write question number, let's say question 1, part 2, 4 centimeter. Make sure that you write both. That's the best thing to do. And try to recheck your answers either once you have completed one answer, just quickly go to the question, check the numbers given, check your steps and calculations, and make sure that you feel it's the correct answer. Move on to the next question. Or let's say you have finished your paper 15 minutes, 20 minutes early. So the last 15-20 minutes, again go through all the questions carefully. And if you notice any error, just do one strike and write the correct answer on the side. If you feel the entire answer is completely wrong, only in that situation, what you can do is at the last page, wherever you have space, again you write all the steps, everything correctly. And once you know that that is the correct answer, go back and just cut the previous answer. And you can just mention that this is attempted in the last page, something like that. So that should be a rare situation. Don't do this in the entire paper. Only if you find out major mistakes that you have to redo an entire question because it is entirely wrong. Otherwise, for smaller mistakes, just strike it off and write on the side, on the top, somewhere it's very visible and clear to the examiner. Highlight the final answer. You can put it in a box. Don't use any other color. You can just, with your pen, you can do that. So presentation, generally it's good if it's overall readable and visible. All construction work, graph work, you have to do with pencil. So please sharpen your pencils and do that. And so